everyone. We're continuing our study of Sefer Yirmiyahu. We're up to Perek Mem Ches. This is a whole section dealing with Nevuos about the Umos HaOlam. And now we have a Nevuah about Moav. Now Moav, as you know, is a nation that was generated by the incest that Lot had with his two daughters after Sodom was destroyed. And Lot was saved with his two daughters. The oldest daughter got him drunk and had a child from him that she called Moav, from my father. The younger daughter did the same thing the next night and had a child from him that she called Ammon. So Ammon and Moav were generated in incest, but they are still connected to us. They are Lot, who is Avram's nephew. But in the Midbar, they refused to give us Lechem Umayim, and Balak, the king of Moab, hired Bilam to curse us. And because of this, the Torah says Ammon and Moav cannot enter the congregation of Hashem, although halachically we darshan that only applies to the male Ammon and Moabite converts and not to the females. That's why Rus HaMoaviyah was allowed to enter Klal Yisrael, and she was the grandmother of David. Moab lived east of the Yarden. This was a territory that was not conquered by Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe, because Hashem basically said we are not allowed to wage war against Moav. But Moav continued to be an enemy against the Jewish people throughout the reigns of the Malachim. And now there's a Nevuah that Moav, that never suffered Galus, is going to suffer Galus and Chorban because of all of the cruelty that they showed to Bnei Yisrael. Now, unlike the Plishtim, that was a short Nevuah, the Nevuah about the downfall of Moav is a very long Nevuah, and it mentions many places, prominent cities, landmarks, mountains, waterfalls, hills. These places are hard to identify, so we don't really get the power of it, but one has to understand that for people who were listening to this Nevuah at the time, they knew where these places were. These were landmarks: Chicago, New York, the World Trade Center, etc. So, as is often the case, when we don't know the Metzias that clearly, we don't have the picture that the Navi is trying to convey. But I'll try to point this out as we go on. Le Moav, a prophecy not to Moav, but concerning Moav, because all these prophecies are given to the Jewish people. Ka yamar Hashem tzivakos Elokei Yisrael, so says Hashem, the God of Israel. Hay alas el Nevo. Now Nevo, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was actually buried on Har Nevo, but Nevo is a city or a town or a district in Moav. Alas to Nevo, ki shudada, for she has been plundered. Hovisha, she is ashamed. Nilkada Kiryosayim, again a town in Moav, is conquered. Hovisha ha-miskav v'chata, the miskav, the high place of escape and refuge, is ashamed, as if a place could be ashamed. V'chata, for it too has been broken. This is ches, tafhe, not sin, which would be a test, but chata with a taf is to be broken. Ein oid tehilas Moav b'cheshbein. The praise of Moav can no longer be found in cheshbein. Now this is a little unclear. Cheshbon is a city in east of the Jordan. Now the Torah tells us that Cheshbein originally belonged to Moav, but it was conquered from Moav by Sichain Melech HaEmori, and Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael conquered it as part of Eretz Sichain v'Emori. And although we're not allowed to wage war against Moav, the Gemara says, Ammon and Moav tiru b'Sichain, whatever Sichain conquered, we could conquer from Sichain. And Cheshbon became the territory of Reuven. So in point of fact, Cheshbon had actually been a Jewish city for much of the period of the first Beis HaMikdash. But apparently at some point the Moabites reconquered Cheshbon. And this nevuah says that they will lose cheshbon, again to Nebuchadnezzar. Chashvu la'ara l'chu v'nachrisena migoy. That the enemy is thinking about Mayav, evil tidings. Let us go and cut them off from being a nation. Gam madmein tidaimi acharayach telei chorev. You shall be silenced, and after you the sword will follow. Meaning, even when you run away, there'll be an enemy following you with a sword. Kayel tzaka mecharonayim. I hear the sound of shouting and screaming from Chayronayim, again a Moabite city, all the different cities. Shod v'shever gadol, plundering and great breaking. Nishbara Mayav, Mayav has been broken. Hashmiyu Zaka Tzira, its young, courageous warriors are screaming in fear. Ki me'alei haluchis bibchi yale bechi. So Malei HaLuchit is a mountain pass called Luchit, that in the ascent of Luchit, as they're running away, they're going up the ascent with crying. B'morad Choronayim Tzarei Tzakas Shever Shemeya. So again, it's using this imagery that sometimes they're running away by going up on a mountain pass. Other times they're running away by going down. But whether they're running away by going up or they're running away by going down, the common denominator is bibachi ya'aleh and bibachi in the Yerida. Pasuk Vav. Nusu maltu nafshechem. Vatiyena kararer b'midbar, speaking as it were to the Moabites, run away, try to save your life. But you will be like an isolated plant growing in the desert. You will not have water, you will not have support, you will not have colleagues, so to speak. The few of you that manage to escape will be as isolated as a solitary cactus in the midbar. Ki yan bitcheich b'maasayich u'v'yotzrosayich. You trusted in your deeds, your heroism, and your treasures and your wealth. But gam at tilachedi, but you too will be captured and conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. Vayetze Kamaish Bagayla. Kamaish is the god of Mayav. Your god Kamaish shall go into exile. Kayhanav v'sarav yachtav. The Kohanim of Kamaish, the officers of Kamaish. Vayavai Shaded al kol yir v'ir lo simalet. And the Shoded, the plunderer, will come into every Moabite city. None shall escape. V'yavad ha'emek. And the fertile valleys will be destroyed. V'nishmat ha'mishor. And the plains will be destroyed. Asher Amar Hashem. This is what Hashem declares. Tanu tzitz l'mayav. We ought to give a wing to Mayav. In other words, you need a wing to fly away. Ki not so teitzei, for she'll want to fly away. V'yarel l'shama tiyena. And all of her cities shall become desolate. Mi'ein yoshev ba. No one living there. Oror. Isa Moleches Hashem Remiah. Cursed is the person who does the work of God with deceit. Now again, the Pashat Pshat is that there's a curse on any enemy of Mayav who has rachamim on Mayav. If you let the Moabites free, you are being dishonest and deceitful in doing the work of God, because the work of God is to destroy Mayav. So the Pashat Pshat of the Pasuk is referring to getting the job done. Cursed is the one who does the job of Hashem in a deceitful, dishonest manner. Oror maineya charbay bidam. Cursed is the one who withholds his sword from blood. Now, the Gemara does have general drushes, which are out of context, about people who do Melechus Hashem Biramiyah. That would be a teacher who does not correct his mistakes, right? Those are drushos of doing Melechus Hashem, not in a conscientious way. But again, in Pshutai Shel Mikra, it's the Navi calling upon the Umais to do their job against Mayav. And now it mentions that unlike Klal Yisrael themselves, Mayav had never suffered an exile before. Sha'anan Moav min Urav. Moav has been tranquil ever since its earliest youth. Shoke too El Shemarav. Like wine that is resting on top of its sediment. It's never been shaken up. It is simply wine floating on sediment. Loi hurak michli el kli. The wine was never poured from one vessel to another vessel. So too Mayav has never been taken away from its lands. Uvagayla leihalach. It never went into Golas. Okay. Amad taimai. So just like wine that has not been disturbed, wine has not been shaken, wine has not been poured michli uchli, the strength, its taste remains. Reichai leinamar, its aroma, its fragrance has never dissipated. Mayav is a powerful, secure nation where nothing ever happened to it. But that generated arrogance and gaiva and cruelty. L'chein, therefore, hine yamim baim nom Hashem. Days are coming. Now this will be again after the Churban. This is after the Churban. Yirmiyahu is prophesying about what will happen after the Churban. V'shilachti lai tzayim. I will send emptiers, meaning, going with the analogy, you were never poured from one kli to another kli. That's a mashal for galus. I will send people that will pour you out of your land. The kelev yariku. Your kalim will be emptied. Again, that's a metaphor for going into galus. Nivleim. Your wine bottles, or your wine barrels rather, yinapetsu, shall be smashed. Again, this is both metaphorical and literal. Uvaish mayav mikmaish. Mayav will be ashamed of all of the faith it put in the false idol of Kamaish. Kasher baishu beis Yisrael mi beisel miftacham. Just as the house of Israel, meaning the 10 tribes, ultimately were ashamed of the golden calves, the Eglei Zav, that Yeravim ben Nevat put up, that they worshipped in Beisel, meaning because they're going to see that these gods do not help them. Now going back to the Moabites, Pasuk Yudalid. Eich tomru gibayrim anachnu v'anshei chayil milchama. How could you possibly have ever said, we are mighty, we are heroic in battle? Shudad Mayav. Mayav has been plundered. V'yareha Allah, and its cities have gone up, as if it were gone up into the sky. They've disappeared. Umivchar b'chuchav yardu l'tevach, and its choicest young men were brought down to be slaughtered like animals. Niyum hamelech Hashem tzivakot shemo. These are the words of the king, Hashem tzivakot. Karai veid Mayav lavai. The day of Mayav's destruction is coming near. V'rasam eiramaid. And the evil that shall befall it is coming very quickly. Nudulai kol sevivav. All of the nations around Mayav are going to nod their heads as if to say, wow, how did that happen? Like you shake your head when something is so amazing, even in a bad way. B'chol yodei shmo, that no Mayav are going to shake their heads in amazement. Imru, they will say, Eicha nishbar matei ois makel tifara. Mayav was a matei ois, was a stick of strength that could beat and subjugate all the nations. It was a matei ois. Makel, again a stick, tifara of glory. Eicha nishbar, how did that powerful stick get broken? Redi mikavod, get down from your honor. Ushavi batsama, and sit in the thirst of the desert. Yosheves bas Divon, again Divon is a city in Moab. Ki shoded Moab alabach, the plunderer of Moab has come up against you. Shiches mivsarayach, he has destroyed. Now this really means the future, but in the Nevuah, it's so certain that it's keilu, it's already happened. Shiches mivsarayach, he shall destroy your fortifications. El derech imdi v'tzapi yosheves arer, you who dwell in Aroer. Again, Aroer is yet another city in Moab. You who dwell in Aroer, stand and look and ask as you see your Moabites running away. Again, Moab is personified as a woman who is said to ask the Moabites who are running away and the mercenaries that are running away. Shali, Nas, V'nimlata, ask those who are running away and escaping, Imri mani yasa, tell me what is going on. And the answer is, again, Hayvish Mayav, Mayav is humiliated, ki cheta, because it is broken. Heililu uza'aku, wail and cry and scream, Agidu bi'arnain, declare in Arnain, which again, one of the capitals of Moab. Ki shudad Moab, that Moab has fallen. Umishbat ba'el eretz misha, the land of the plain, because Moab was largely plain and valley. Judgment has come to the plain. El Cholon v'el Yatza v'al Meifas. Again, these are cities. You see that rhetorically he keeps on mentioning not just Moab, but this city and that city and that city, because these were beautiful cities, wealthy cities, powerful cities. And therefore there's something very strong in saying they will fall. And it mentions a whole list. Cholon, Yatza, Meifas, Divai, Nevo, Beis Devlasayim, Kiryasayim, Beis Gamol, Beis Maon, Kiryot, Val Batzra, Al Kol, Orei, Eretz, Moab. All the cities of Moab, this shall happen to Harachokos, whether they're far away or near, wherever they are. Nigda'a Keren Moab, the mighty horn of Moab, because the strength of an animal is in its horn, shall be cut. Nigda'a. Zorao Nishbaretz, its arm shall be broken. Niyom Hashem. Hashkiruhu. So this is I will make Moab drunk. Right? We often talk about sarais as if Hashem has, this is a biblical metaphor, Hashem has a cup, and the cup is filled with suffering and tragedy. And when Hashem gives the cup to a nation to drink, the nation becomes drunk, not drunk with wine that brings simcha, but drunk with saras. So Hashem is saying, make Moab drunk with the tsarais it's going to drink. Ki al Hashem higdil. For all of the cruelty it did against Am Yisrael was a cruelty and an avera against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'safek Moab b'kiyai, Moab shall fill itself up with its own vomit. All that it did to other people, it's going to have to eat up again. V'haya l'schait gamhu, and Moab will become a mockery. People will laugh at Moab, make fun of Moab, because after all, Moab laughed and made fun when we were suffering. V'imlai haschaik haya lecha Yisrael, did not you have laughter when the Jewish people were suffering? Im biganavim nimtza, were the Jewish people found among ganavim? Meaning to say, often the Jewish people were suffering even when they were righteous. Were they found with thieves that you should rejoice? in their suffering? Ki midei devarecha by that whenever you spoke about them tisnaidad, you would shake your head as if to say they deserved it. Izvu arim v'shichnu baseli yeshvei mayav. You who dwell in Mayav, you're going to leave your cities, and you'll dwell in the rocks, like hiding out like savages. V'hayu keyayna tekanein v'evrei pipachas. You will be like a dove that is trying to build its nest in the cracks of a rock, so no predator bird, like an eagle, could find it. Shamanu ga'ain Mayav ge'imai. We have heard of the greatness of Mayav and the great pride that it has. Gavai, its height. Ga'ainai, its majesty. Ga'avasai, its pride. Verum levavai, in the haughtiness of its heart. But ani yadati no Hashem evrasa. But I also know the anger of Mayav towards Yidden. V'lochein, that was not deserved. Badav, I know the lies of its false prophets. Loichein asu, that did not turn out to be true. Hatred and false prophets. Al Kain, therefore, Al Mayav Ayalel. On Mayav I will wail, as if to say, I'll acknowledge the suffering of Mayav. Mayav kulo ezak, I will cry out. El Anshe, again going back to the cities, the people of Kircheres, again a city in Mayav. Yaga, Shalmon, Mibchi Yazer Epchalach Agefen Sivma. From Yazer, which was a city at the borders of Mayav, I will cry. The vines of Sivma, again a grain-producing area, will be desolate. Netisha Sayach, your offshoots of your vines that should have been producing grapes. Avru Yam Ad Yam were taken from one ocean to another ocean, meaning taken into Gullus. Yazer Nagu, all the way to the faraway town of Yazer. Al kitseich v'al b'tzireich, on your late figs and on your grape harvest. Shoded nofal, the plunderer has fallen. V'nesfa simcha v'gil mi Carmel u'me'eretz Mayav. There will no longer be joy and happiness from the fertile fields in the land of Mayav. V'yayin me'kavim hishpati. I have stopped wine from being produced in the wine presses. Lo yidrach heidad. Lo heidad. So this is referring to a minhag when people used to trample the grapes. It's like exercise music. When they would trample the grapes, they would call out in rhythm, "Hey Dad, hooray, 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 hooray." But Mayav will be conquered. The vineyards will be destroyed. The fertility of the land will be destroyed. There will no longer be people who are stomping on the grapes, calling, "Hey Dad, hey Dad." There will be lo heidad. There will be no haraz in this destruction of Mayav. Mizakas cheshbon ad elalei. The cry will go from cheshbon to elalei. Ad yahat, again city markers. Nasnu kaila mitzayar ad charanayim. There will be crying from Tsayar until Charanayim. Eglas Shalishia, you were so beautiful, Mayav, like the third-born Egel. It says that the third-born of an Egel, of a calf, is the prettiest calf. Kigam me Nimrim, even the waters of Nimrim, which was a waterfall in a very, very fertile stream, Lemeshima Isiyu, will become desolate and empty. V'ishpati l'mayvim Hashem ma'ila bama u'makir lelohav. And I will take away from Mayav the ability to even bring korbanos to its idols on a bama and to sacrifice to its God. Al kain libi l'Mayav k'chalalim yahema. My heart goes out to Moav like I mourn over a corpse. And my heart towards the people of Kirchares, again, a city in Moav, are like chalilim, are like flutes that are playing mournful music. Al kain yisras asa, whatever profit and gain it produced, avadu, has been destroyed. Ki kol reish karcha v'chal zakein gedu. In terms of the Moabites, every hair is pulled bald. Every beard has been plucked. Al kol yadayim gedudos, every hand has been cut. V'al masnayim shaik, and on all thighs there is sackcloth. Al kol gagais Moav v'chavisa kulo mispein, on all the rooftops of Moav, people are crying to their gods and mispaid, eulogizing those who they've lost. Ki shavarti es Moav kichli ein chafetz bei, I have smashed Moav like a vessel that nobody wants, a worthless piece of earthenware. Eich chata helilu, they cry out, Heich chata, how did we get broken? Heich ifna eiref Moav baish, how could Eiref in humiliation turn its neck, in other words, turn the back of its neck towards the enemy as they run away? Where is its courage? Vaya Moav l'schaik, and Moav will be a source of laughter. V'lemachita, and an example of a nation that is broken, l'chol sevivav, in all of its surroundings. Ki chai amar Hashem, so declares Hashem. Hine kanesher yida, as an eagle flies, and the eagle grabs its prey, a rat or a mouse, from the ground. As an eagle flies in the air, uparas knafav el Moav, it will spread its wings and grab Moav. So Nebuchadnezzar is described as an eagle here. Nilkeda hakriot v'mitzadot nitpasa, the cities will be conquered, and the strong towers of defense will be seized. V'haya leiv giborei Moav b'yirmiyahu, and the courageous hearts of the mighty soldiers of Moav on that day shall be kolev isha mitzera, like a woman going through labor pains. You're crying, you're weak. V'nishmad Moav, and the nation of Moav shall be destroyed. Me'am, as a nation. Ki al Hashem higdil, because they tried to rebel against God, not only by their own avodah zarah, but by what they did to Klal Yisrael. Pachad v'fachas v'fach, you, the Moabites, will face fear. Pachas, like pits, and pach are traps. You'll see in a moment how these three metaphors work. Alecha shall come upon you. Fear, pit, trap. Hanos mipnei apachad, he who runs away because of fear of an enemy. Yipael el apachas, shall fall into a pit. V'ya'ilem in apachas, and when you get up from a pit, yilached bapach, you'll be captured in a trap. Now again, this doesn't have to be totally literally. It just means that every time you think you've escaped from the enemy, there will be something else that will get you down. I'll bring upon Moav its punishment. In the shadow of Cheshbon. Cheshbon was originally a Moabite city. It was conquered by Sichon. It was then conquered by Am Yisrael. It was then reconquered by Moav. In the shadow of Cheshbon, those who wanted to escape are going to be trapped. Ki eish yotza me Cheshbon. A fire has come out of Cheshbon. Now again, interestingly, this is actually a very, very close paraphrase of the Lashon of the Torah, which are the words of Bilam. Because the concept was the fire that comes out of Cheshbon is referring to the conquest of Sichain, conquering Cheshbon from Mayav. So Yirmiyahu is deliberately repeating that language. Just as the Eish of Sichain conquered Mayav, so the Eish of Nebuchadnezzar shall conquer Mayav again. Same thing will happen again. Vataychel pas Mayav, this fire will consume every corner of Mayav. V'kadkaid, and it will defeat the heads, smash the heads of the Bnei Sha'ain, the children of the multitude. You, Mayav, are called Bnei Sha'ain. You're such a large multitude nation. Oy lacha Mayav, alas to you, Mayav. Avad am Kamaish, the nation of Kamaish has been destroyed. This is again taken from the Torah. Ki lukchu vanecha bashevi, your sons have been taken captives for slaves. Uvnosecha, and your daughters bashivya, in captivity. But here too, after this very, very long destructive prophecy, Hashem gives a similar promise to what he gave to Mitzrayim. V'shavti shavus mayav bi'acharis hayamim. Now we don't know when, and this hasn't happened yet, so we're kind of in the dark. Hashem says, I will return the captivity of Mayav at the end of days. Now it's interesting, there is a chazal in Bava Basra that says the Asid Lavai, the Jewish people will take over the land of Mayav. So when it says here, I'll return Mayav, that doesn't mean that Mayav will be an independent nation. They will be restored to their land, but they will be under the rulership of Am Yisrael. Ammon, Mayav, and Edom will be under the Shlita of Am Yisrael. But here too, so it said it by Mitzrayim. One second, it did not say it by the Plishtim, is that right? Let me just check the Perek. Yeah, it did not. But it did say Mitzrayim shall be restored. And that was only 40 years later. But by Mayav, the Havtacha that Mayav will be restored is only Bi'acharis Yamim. And the Pasuk says, Ad Heina Mishpat Mayav. This is the end of the judgment of Mayav.